Hey, welcome to this toasty Wednesday night. If you are on the East Coast or maybe anywhere in the United States, pretty hot. Hopefully, you are in safely with some air conditioning or a fan or both and enjoying the night inside. Spending any time outdoors gets a little bit crazy heat wise. So, glad to be here with you. Hope you all are having a good week and we're ready to dive into Wednesday night. I always appreciate your time and looking forward to Sunday. Just a reminder, those of you who are local, we are having our church barbecue right after church on Sunday, Sunday the 30th. We are looking forward to it. Come hang out with us, with your families, and we're going to have a great time. Hey, Layla. So, yeah. Hope you all enjoyed Pastor Brian Spicer last week. Always great to have my friends come and speak for us, and especially when I can be there. We switched pulpits in May. This time I was able to be there for his speaking, and I appreciated what he had to say. I appreciate him as a person, and the fact that he and particularly he and Pastor Milas love Brookridge and support us and are there for us. You would have not wanted to hear me talk after only getting 4 hours of sleep on Sunday morning. So it's a good thing. But I'll be back this Sunday, well rested and ready to go. And then we launch into our summer series about the life of Abraham right after this Sunday. So finish up Minor Prophets this Sunday, summer series. Very exciting. We're going to get into James in a little bit, but I found for our list this week, things found while dumpster diving. I'm not sure I necessarily recommend dumpster diving, but hey, $300 earrings. I'm not sure how many dumpsters they had to dive in to get these things, but they found them. I guess there's professional dumpster divers. So for what that's worth. Hey, look at the dumpsters behind floral shops and you might get yourself a nice floral arrangement. Very nice. I've heard that donut shops also throw out their day-old donuts. I'm not recommending this, but if you want some day-old donuts, go for it. This is a $1,500 desk chair. I prefer Secret Lab. They're not sponsoring me, but their chairs are very, very comfortable and not $1,500, but better than the Staples chairs that you basically have to replace every year. And then sometimes when you're putting them together, the screws don't line up with the screw holes when you're trying to assemble it. This chair is built like a rock, weighs a ton, and was very easy to assemble. So that's sort of off topic. I did not find this chair in a dumpster. I got it directly from Secret Lab. This one's interesting. This is the before and after. Took it apart, cleaned everything, bought a new battery for it. It looks brand new. And then here's the after picture. I don't know that cleaning it would make it look like that. So this one is a little bit sketchy for me. I mean, I get if they repainted it, but they did not say that. They just said, took it apart, cleaned everything, bought a new battery, and now it changed colors. This is why you can't believe everything you see on the internet. Student move-out season is upon us. So somebody found a bunch of laptops and Apple products, watches, AirPods. Nice. Two 65-inch TVs, both in working condition. Nice job. I don't know who's throwing out 65-inch TVs, but 30 pairs of $120 boots. And the things people throw away, huh? Apparently, Hoka is a good running shoe. That's the way you pronounce it. I do not wear them. As you know, I am already pot committed to another brand and I'm stuck with Nike for the rest of my life. But Hoka is apparently very good. Oh, look at this. Somebody found a suit of armor. Can't imagine. Here's the thing. I'm not sure why somebody had this in the first place to throw away. And I also don't know why somebody was so excited to find it in the trash. Here's what looks to be a nice electric guitar, or actually this might be a bass. It's only 4 strings, so I think that's a bass. School through some fossils in the dumpster. Yeah, you want some old bones of animals? Then go dumpster diving behind the schools. Fantastic. Oh, this person hit the mother load. Did they hit the mother load? That is, I don't know what you do with those. Confessional time. AJ and I, when we were dating, one of our favorite places to go was Dave and Buster's, and we'd see how many tickets we could find. And then, really, the only thing you could redeem them for that was anything worth it were these stuffed Angry Birds. So I right now have a large collection of stuffed Angry Birds that I'm not allowed to display at the house and don't really want to display at my church office. So they're just sitting in a bag right now. So somebody's going to hit the mother load of Angry Birds someday. Pulled out a mid-century modern bunk bed. Nice. Somebody throwing this away. Put it together. Oh, a ball gown. You never know what you can find in the dumpster. This is very sad. Anyone who throws a kitten in the dumpster makes me very upset. Not cool. Rescue animals. You see my two rescued animals running around. They are fantastic. All right. So there are some valuable things that can be found while dumpster diving, apparently. All right. So let's get to sharing. Talking about James today, right? We've been talking about James a lot of days, but we talked the last couple of weeks about the idea of faith versus works and how James and Paul both wrote around the idea of faith and works, and they were not in disagreement. They were just kind of looking at different angles. And so I hope you enjoyed that discussion. Now we are getting into James chapter 3. So this passage of James gets up in your grill. So selfishly, I've been looking forward to this moment where I can bring you in to share in my discomfort. James 3, 1 to 13, we're going to cover it over the next couple of weeks, has 3 parts to it. It has an introduction, it has a thesis with 2 points, and then it has a conclusion. All 3 parts should make us all feel very, very uncomfortable. So that's the setup for this. We're going to jump right into the intro in James verse 1. He says, it's chapter 3, not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. Hey, Lynn. Hi, Mom. So yeah, he gets right in. Not many of you should become teachers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. This whole passage is about the tongue, how you speak, but he doesn't start there. He backs it up and says, not many of you should be teachers. Just want to get that out there. And he tells them why. He presents that teaching, being someone who stands up in front of a group and proclaims the word of God, is a very dangerous thing to do for 2 reasons. The first one he says is because we all know that teachers will receive a greater judgment or be judged with more strictness. We all know that. How? Well, James takes this right from his brother, Jesus. In Luke chapter 12, Jesus is speaking to a group of people about the end of days where God will come back to judge his people. And Jesus uses the story of a master who was on a trip. And when he comes back, his servants should be found working diligently, illustrating that when God comes back, his people should be busy doing his will. And as Jesus is explaining this, Peter, who is one of his inner circle guys, right, says, hey, Jesus, this story doesn't apply to everyone, does it? I mean, you're just talking to the sinful people out here, right? And Jesus responds saying, you're right. There is another party, the head servant, the one who's in charge of every other servant, i.e. guys like you, Peter. That guy should be even more on top of his game. He shouldn't be getting drunk and messing around. Jesus says the normal servant who messed up and didn't know any better will get a light beating, but the head of the servants, if found not working, will get a severe beating. And Jesus ends with, everyone to whom much was given, of him much will be required, and to whom they entrusted much, they will demand even more. It's a little weird to hear Jesus talk about issuing beatings, but what he was saying was this. If you've been given more, if you've received greater access to me and my word, and you've been given a platform to then influence others, I expect more out of you. If I'm an owner and I go away and come back and there's something going wrong with my business, who do I look to? The manager. And Jesus was saying, if you're a leader in my church, among my people, and there's something going wrong, I'm looking at you. You will be the one who has to give an account. So James says, if you want to be a teacher, you have to know God's going to judge you more strictly than everybody else. Back in those days, to be a teacher was a high position. It was a position of honor, credibility in the community. So a lot of people wanted to seek it because they were ambitious. They wanted the attention and the glory. And James is like, slow down there, chief, because God's going to come after you. So maybe you have gifts and talents. You have the ability to articulate, you're funny, you're smart, and you're like, I want the ball. I want to teach and I want to lead. Be careful. You make sure you come humbly. You need to be fearful of God. You need to tremble at his word and legitimately love his people. And if you don't, you have no business being in front of us. And you should beg God to keep you off a stage if you don't have those three things: a fear for him, a trembling before his word, and a sincere love for his people. If you just want to be on stage to feel awesome, thank God he keeps you far away from it, because you'll weep less later. So you don't want to be arrogant and be teaching people, because Jesus will beat you. Point number 2, why James is saying teaching is dangerous, is that when a teacher gets up in front of a group of people, the teacher has to teach, right? Use his mouth. He has to speak. So James says what's dangerous is not just having influence and therefore being accountable to God, but as you stand in front of people, you're going to use the most dangerous part of your body. That's James' intro. So now he says in verse 2, for we all stumble in many ways. And I love this about James, because he's hard on us. But in this moment, he says, hey, everybody messes up. We all fail, and we all fail in a variety of ways. You might get a handle on your lust problem, but you have a problem with arrogance. You may have a handle on your pride problem, but you have a love of money. All of us struggle in different ways. So if you're succeeding here, still remain humble, because you're struggling where somebody else isn't. We all stumble in many ways. But then he says, but if anyone does not stumble, here's what he says. If there's a guy who does not stumble literally in his words, what he says, he's a perfect man, able to bridle his whole body. So James says, everybody messes up. Nobody's perfect. Everybody stumbles. Everybody falls. But if you can locate a human being who does not stumble in what he says, let me tell you what you've just found. You've found a person who's perfect and can control his entire body. 2 implications to this. Number 1, saying the tongue has more power than any other organ in your body. Tongue has more power than anything. But number 2, the tongue is very hard to control. That's James' thesis. That's his argument. Can't you imagine? He thought people probably wouldn't believe. Your tongue is your toughest muscle? Seriously? So he's going to prove it with a bunch of illustrations. So first, he'll prove that the tongue is powerful. And his core point is the little can lead the big. So verse 3, if we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. So if you can control your tongue, you can control your entire body, because the tongue is the hardest to control. Then he says, we put a little piece of metal in the mouth of a horse, and the tiny jockey can control a great big horse if he just gets control of that little piece of metal in the horse's mouth. What's he saying? The little directs the big. He says it again in verse 4. He says, look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot corrects. Big boats in tough conditions can be bent to your will if you have control of that little rudder, right? The little controls the big. So he's saying, if you can get control of your mouth, you can control the rest of your life, because the tongue is very, very powerful. Russ, I don't know if I believe that. Well, just think about this. If you're an eloquent person, you can become the president of the United States. If you're good at putting lyrics together, you can make millions of dollars from popular songs. Russ, I would love it if my words could make me millions of dollars. Well, for you and me, our words can greatly impact your social life, right? A well-placed compliment can create a best friend. It can build a friendship. It can get you a date. But foolish and offhand comments can end careers and destroy relationships. Some of you have lost friendships over a sentence. So is your tongue powerful? You bet it is. And that's James' argument. Little can control the big. It can control the direction of your life. And James starts out using innocuous things like a horse and a ship, but then he moves on to a third illustration and brings in this other nuance. He's pushing this argument, the little can lead the big. Your little tongue If you use it, it can get you a job, or it can get you fired. It can get you a date, or it can get you slapped. This little tongue can direct the course of your life. So he says the little controls the big, and then he says it can have disastrous consequences. Verse 5, he says, how great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. So the little controls the big, and if you're not careful, the little will burn the whole big thing down. There have been several wildfires in California over the last 20 years. There was one in the Angora neighborhood of California in June 2007 that burned 3,000 acres of land, destroyed 242 residences, 67 commercial structures, and damaged 35 other homes, causing over $141 million of damage. Took over 2,000 firefighters at a cost of $11.7 million to put the fire out, and it was started by a campfire. Some dude was like, oh, I'm all done with my marshmallows, and then he burned down 3,000 acres and caused $150 million in damage. A little campfire destroyed homes, destroyed people's lives. The little thing can burn down the big. So James says the tongue is small, but it can do a lot of damage. Charles Spurgeon, the great speaker and preacher, he moved his congregation to Surrey Gardens so they could seat over 10,000 people. Big deal. But the first service there, somebody shouted one word, fire. There was no fire. Somebody yelled it for fun, and 7 people died, and a bunch more were injured. And Spurgeon almost went crazy from the impact on the people that he was responsible for. The little can impact and affect the big. Russ, that's kind of extreme. Well, just think of when that dream girl or dream guy acknowledged your existence for the first time. What happened in that moment? Suddenly the sky is more vibrantly colored, food tastes better, whatever you were depressed about before seems not as big of a deal. Now imagine you're in a public place and the people behind you are trying to whisper, but you hear them making fun of your looks or your clothes. What sticks with you the rest of your day? What are you reviewing in your mind? Which one lands? And you have a problem dislodging it. The tongue is powerful. It can make you feel great, it can make you feel bad, it can burn your house down. Some of your friendships, again, have been irreparably damaged because of a careless word that you've said. You even apologize, but the damage has been done, and you're wondering if you can make it right again. Think of the damage a husband can do to a wife with just one word, or a wife to a husband. Careless words spoken can really hurt the way somebody sees themselves. For some of you, somebody spoke a careless word over your life, and it's dominated your self-perception. Many of you, when you look in the mirror, that careless word spoken that they've already forgotten about and moved on completely controls what you see, because there's power in the tongue. Think about what a father or mother can say to a child that will completely change the way they see themselves and their role in the world. Some of you have habituated saying negative things. That's just kind of your deal. Let me tell you something. You've become a negative person. The tongue doesn't just affect the hearer, it affects the speaker too. We came up with that nursery rhyme, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. When do you say that? You say that when somebody said something hurtful to you, right? But if it didn't bother you, you can just blow it off and not really care. But you spend time and energy on it. Why? Because it really did bother you. So if we're going to honestly follow James, it's sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will burn this whole thing down. Somebody may hit you with a stick and you'll heal. Somebody says a hurtful word, and maybe you're still carrying that hurt around years later. So the tongue is powerful, but it's not just powerful, it's perverse. James says the tongue can control the whole body, but there's a problem. It can control the whole body like a campfire can control the whole forest. He says it's powerful, and there's something perverse about it. Notice in verse 6, and the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life. It can ruin your life and is set on fire by hell. So your tongue is not just powerful, your tongue is set on fire by hell. James says your tongue is powerful and it's fueled by the depths. It's lit up with hellfire, and that's a problem. He's saying there's something desperately wrong with the way we talk. And then he gives the reason why in verse 7. He says, for every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue. says, you want to know why you can't control your tongue? You want to know why hell powers the way you speak? Just think about any animal. The names of birds, reptiles, sea creatures. Those animals can be tamed and have been tamed. We see lions doing tricks. We see bears riding bicycles, elephants dressed up and giving people rides. We have Shamu entertaining our kids. Maybe not anymore. Disclaimer, Brookridge did not support the inhumane treatment of animals. We love them, but we aren't scared of nature anymore, right? We see a massive whale at seafood. Seafood. We see a massive whale at SeaWorld, and we're like, man, that was funny. Let's go get popcorn. James says you can control all kinds of creatures, but you can't keep your mouth shut. You can't. We'll end with this. There's a test developed where the goal was to try 6 things for 1 week. Number 1, do not complain or grumble. Number 2, do not boast about anything at all. Number 3, do not gossip or repeat bad information about anybody else. Number 4, do not run somebody down even a little bit. So don't be mean or rude. Number 5, do not defend or excuse yourself no matter what. And number 6, always affirm other people. That'd be a great way to use your tongue, right? Could you do that for a week? Could you do that for an hour? I'll give you a simpler test. Go through a day without saying something negative. I bet you can't. Most of our conversations start with something like, man, it's hot here. Why do we live in the Northeast? Or it's cold here. Why do we live in the Northeast or in the summer? I feel like I'm in a furnace when there's no central air. Try a day of not complaining or gossiping. Just try it. Somebody says, hey, it's freezing outside. Well, I'm glad to be alive. Is Russ ever going to stop talking? Yeah, but I think all that we're learning is great, right? It's impossible for you to be positive and not sound like a weirdo. Why? Because we have habituated a culture of negativity. Why? Because we can't control it. It's hellfire, like James says. That's his point. There's something deeply wrong with us. Think about when you have an exhausting week, or maybe a couple weeks, and you're like, I need a nap. But it's not just like, I need a nap, but it's like, I don't like anybody. I don't know if you've had that moment where you're like, everyone's wrong except me. In that moment, for me, you know you need rest and space. Like a baby who's overtired. It's like, like he just needs to sleep. But you have times where you say stuff and immediately think, why did I just say that? That was extremely inappropriate to say. Or you repeat a story and you're like, why? There was no reason to tell you that information about that person. Or you say something and have to apologize. It's like, man, just shutty. Just don't say anything. Nothing would be better. But I find myself at times trying to hold it in and then just blurting it out. I don't like that. What's wrong with me? I can't stop it. Proverbs 10 says, where there are many words, transgressions are unavoidable. You start talking, guarantee you're going to sin. Why? Because your tongue's lit up by the fires of hell. There is some grace coming. There is some good news coming. But let's start with that. And the challenge for the week, and I would love to hear about how you're doing with the challenge, is take a day. Let's not be negative. We understand that the tongue is a fire. We understand that we can do so much damage with our words. And we should be the people of God who are speaking life. Hey, Claire. Pastor Brian Spicer. Let's be careful. Let's speak life into the world. When negativity comes to us, let's not respond to it with more negativity. Let's respond to it with positivity. And not just, oh, everything's great, everything's happy. It's like even in the worst of times, see, God is our refuge when we need to vent. David vented to him all the time in the Psalms, but he also said some beautiful, beautiful things that we carry with us, like the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. We have a God that is not afraid of our venting. Let's save our venting for God, and then let's save our life-giving words for everyone else. So that's the challenge. Let's stay away from negativity this week. Let's lift people up. Let's not talk about how great we are, but how great God is, and let's lift other people up. The tongue is only able to be controlled by the Spirit of God in us, and that is the message. James says we all fall short. Very true, Mom. But the grace is that God has given us his very spirit to live in us and give us love, joy, peace, patience. Everything that Jesus was when he was on the earth, we have that opportunity to live that way. Humility, kindness, everything that he was, we have the opportunity to be because his spirit lives inside of us. And let's start with our tongues. All right. Appreciate y'all. I am signing off very soon. We're praying for you. Let me know what you can do. Brookridge people that are local, remember church picnic this Sunday. We'd love to have you come. Bring some ice, bring some desserts. Those of you who are not quite done learning yet, jump over at 7:30 to Bay State Baptist, where Brian Spicer is continuing his series in the Minor Prophets. We are finishing our series in the Minor Prophets this Sunday, like I said, moving on to Abraham. Appreciate y'all. Again, appreciate Pastor Brian Spicer for filling in for me this past week. He did a fantastic job. I was there to see it. If you missed it, it's on our YouTube page and our Facebook pages. So y'all have a great week. Let the Spirit of God speak life through you.